What's going on, everybody? Dots here, and today I have a macro guide for you guys for World of Warcraft. Now, I did mention in my WoW Complete Beginner Guide that I would make a more complete macro guide showing you guys what all of the different macros are for WoW, and that is what today's guide is going to be. I'm going to go over the syntax and the setup for most macros that you're going to need when you play WoW. There are some other macros that do exist that I'm not covering in this list, but what I'm going to be covering today is the overwhelming majority of ones that most people will need. So you'll be able to pretty much kind of refer to this list to be able to create your macros. If you do want just a written version of this guide and to just see what the macros are listed out, there is a link to my website in the description below that does have all of the macros listed. So if you do need to grab them in a pinch, you can simply go there and grab them. But guys, before we get into the macros guide, I do want to thank the sponsor of today's video, Raid Shadow Legends. Raid Shadow Legends is a game all about collecting champions and building a team that will fight your enemies. You can outfit different team comps, different builds for your characters, and just put together a strong force of champions. Let's open some ancient shards to see what we get from our loot today. We get an epic champion here, getting the Drake. Our next champion is going to be another epic, and we got the Snorting Thug. The good thing is if we do get anything that we don't need as much so, we can sacrifice it to empower another unit. But we got a Runic Warder, which is pretty solid. So now we're going to go to the tavern, and we are going to grab our Runic Warder that we want to improve, grab a unit that we don't need, and use it to upgrade. So even if you get something you don't need, you can use it to upgrade another unit. There's tons of new updates in the game, such as the new Bazaar, where you can load up on high-value items with the gold bars you win in Tag Arena, champion fragments, which allow you to get small pieces of specific champions to build into the full champion later on. And then you also have the extended daily login rewards up to 270 days with free champions just for logging in. So go ahead and download the game in the description below, and if you're a new player, you'll get 100,000 silver free and the free champion, the Alkalite. You can find these extra rewards here in your inbox for the next 30 days only. Really quick though, I do just want to say what a macro is in case you did not check out my WoW Complete Beginner Guide, because you could also check that out on my channel if you are new to WoW. And basically, it is just kind of like almost like a custom skill, so to speak. For example, one of my skills in my Shadow Priest I have is Psychic Horror, which will terrify my target, stunning them in place for 4 seconds. But let's say I want to kind of modify this skill and do something slightly different with it, like cast it at my focus target. I can write a macro to basically make a new skill that will put that Psychic Horror at a specific target. So I can keybind this macro to a specific key with a slightly different function. So that's kind of like what you can roughly expect from a macro. We have general macros that are accessible across all characters on your account, and then specific macros for that character, and you get to those by doing escape macros. Now, I am just going to show a list on the screen of some of the macros that we are going to discuss today. Now, the first one is the focus macro, kind of like the one I just went over, and what that does is it casts a skill at a focus target. So you're going to do pound show tooltip / cast target equals focus. You could also do at focus, like the at symbol, and then the spell name, so that will cast any spell at your focus. And then what the show tooltip does is that when you hover over that macro on your skill bar, it will show the tooltip for the skill. We also do have party macros so that you can have certain skills cast at certain members of your party. So again, the pound show tooltip / cast target equals party 1, and then whatever the name of your spell is. You could also do it for a specific person's name, as I've shown here, target equals person's name, and then you have the spell afterwards. You could also change that party 1 to 2, 3, whatever number of the party you want it to be. Or like I said, you can just do specific members names, like let's say you're playing arena with the same people over and over again. Now, speaking of arena, we do have arena 1, 2, 3 macros. That is another great type of macro used in PvP. And we have, again, same thing, pound show tooltip / cast target equals arena 1 as opposed to party 1 or person's name. And then that's going to be the spell name afterwards. And basically what that's going to do is whoever on the enemy team is arena 1, whoever is at the top of the list, that person is going to be arena 1, and the bottom is arena 3. So this will allow you to cast certain skills at anybody on the enemy arena team. What I typically do is I kind of just do targeting macros. So I do /target arena 1 or /focus Arena 1. You could also do replace this Arena 1 with, let's say you're looking for a specific mob out in the world, like if you're looking for a specific monster and you're just kind of trying to target it. You could also just make a macro that does /target, then do space, and then the target's name, and then from there you'll be able to specifically search for that target. We also do have a self-casting macro for if you don't want to use the keybind, the self-casting keybind, where you just make the target your name instead of party 1, a person's name, or Arena 1 or something. The next type of macro that we have is a mouse over macro. Basically, what a mouse over macro does is exactly what it sounds like. It casts wherever your mouse is hovering. So right now I'm hovering my mouse over my Forsaken Battle Guard, and for example, I have a mouse over for my Shackle Undead. So let's say I wanted to cast that skill on him, I would just be able to press the button without specifically targeting him, and it would cast it right on him. That's the benefits of a mouse over macro. I typically use that for more niche skills where I'm going to be targeting, let's say, like a certain pet type that a enemy might have, or you could even just do mouse over macros for healing. Healing is really common to have mouse over macros, so you don't have to constantly target people, so definitely something to consider as well. The next macro that we have is a cast sequence macro. It's going to get a little more complicated now, but still not too bad. And this basically just allows you to use one button to cast a bunch of skills directly in a row after you cast it multiple times. You have to click it multiple times to get it to go off. So we'd have, let's say, show tooltip and then the name of the first spell in the cast sequence. You do /cast sequence space reset equals and then some duration of time in seconds, and then you do spell 1, spell 2, spell 3, spell 4, however many spells you want. After that 10-second reset timer, it will then go back to spell 1. So if there's maybe like a certain type of skill that you want to cast in order, some certain type of combination you always want to use, you could absolutely use a cast sequence macro. Obviously they do, need to respect the GCD. You want to make sure that you have a good reset time. But if you do, for some reason, want to cast multiple skills in a sequence and a singular skill press, a cast sequence macro is going to be very, very helpful to do that. Like I said, you do need to cast a skill. You need to press the skill each time because it's a cast sequence. So you need to press it once for spell 1, a second time for spell 2, and then a third time for spell 3. The next type of macros that we have all have to do with pets. So I have 3 common pet movement macros. You have pet attack, pet passive, and pet move to. Basically, the first one will have your pet attack your current target. Pet passive or pet comeback will basically put your pet into passive mode and kind of have them automatically run back to you. So let's say you need to move your pet back to you directly, but by clicking this macro, you'll be able to accomplish that. And then the third one is pet move to, where your pet will, I believe, move to wherever your mouse currently is. So let's say I had a pet and I wanted to move it here. I would click the pet move to macro and it would move automatically to where my mouse pointer is. Very helpful for certain classes like Unholy DKs, where let's say your pet kick has a minimum range that can't be inside of that. You move the pet slightly away from your target, and then you can click the kick key to actually use the kick. We also have a stop casting macro. Stop casting macros are incredibly important for if you have maybe long duration casted skills that you do need to stop casting. I can use an example for Shadow Priest. I have a skill called Mind Control, which allows me to take control of an opponent's mind and pilot their character basically. And in PvP, it's about an 8-second CC. But let's say I want to cancel that for some reason and go back to doing something else. It's actually a cast that I'm doing during that point. So by doing /stop casting, it will automatically cancel that macro. Speaking of canceling things, we also have a cancel aura macro. I actually have one macro that does, it's just called stop, and it just stops doing all of these things. It's called cancel aura. And basically what cancel aura does, if you guys remember my complete beginner guide, I told you that when you right click something up top, it takes it off your character, where you're basically canceling that aura. So let's say I am in a defensive cooldown. My defensive cooldown for Shadow Priest is called Dispersion, and during that time I can't really do anything except for run around. But let's say I need to hop out of that dispersion early to actually take an action. By doing /cancel aura and then the spell name, it will allow me to cancel the aura coming out of the dispersion and then allowing me to just go and repilot my character, which I think is pretty cool. We have another basically prevention type of macro. It's called I just called it prevent cancellation, and it's /cast and then an exclamation point in front of the spell name. So I use that actually for my shadow form and for my dispersion. As you can see, the exclamation point in front of shadow form means that I have to literally manually right click the skill at the top right or use a cancel aura macro to cancel it. So I'll do Shift X to do shadow form, and if I keep pressing Shift X, it won't let me cancel it. It just recasts it. And it would be the exact same thing with dispersion. If I just press shift 3, I can be able to press shift 3 as many times as I want. It wouldn't cancel it. However, if I didn't have the exclamation point in front of the dispersion here, if I did click shift 3 again, it would automatically cancel it. So for some reason, if I do need to cancel my dispersion, and that's why I have that totally separate button to be able to cancel it, because sometimes when you're PvPing, or even if you're in a raid or something, you might be spamming your buttons, you might be pressing them too often, and if you accidentally click certain skills twice, you might cancel them when you don't mean to. So preventing a cancellation macro I find very helpful. And then the final macro that we have is called just a use item macro. Basically, it's like if you have a trinket, for example, whenever I pop my Shadow Fiend, I use my Manifesto of Madness, so it just /use and then the name of the item. You could also do that for mana buns. If you have a mage in your group, just do /use conjure mana bun. Same thing with the warlock. If you have a health stone, you can do /use health stone. So it just allows you to use items in your inventory or on your character, like the trinkets, and you can combine them with other skills. So for example, when I use my burst macro, because my trinket here is not on the global cooldown, I'm able to use multiple skills at the same time. So I could /cast my Shadow Fiend and use my trinket with one button click. There used to be more of these types of macros where you would just be like big one-shot macros where you would cast 3 or 4 things at the same time because they weren't on the global cooldown. Because do keep in mind, guys, that's another thing you can do with macros. You can actually cast multiple skills at the same time. We discussed those cast macros earlier on, the focus macros. You can literally make macros that just do multiple things. Like I said, I have this cast Shadow Fiend and use the Manifesto of Madness at the exact same time. So let's say you have one skill that's on the GCD and then 3 things that aren't, but you want to use them all at the same time. You can put them into one macro and have that one macro pop everything at the same time when you click it, because these lines do execute simultaneously. So something to keep in mind as well if you do want to make one macro that's got a bunch of different things at once. Even like I said, I do that with this. I have a stop macro that has /cancel aura and stop casting, because you're able to technically do both of those things at the exact same time. So just something to keep in mind, that you can make multiple lines inside of a single macro. I wanted to just touch on this, especially for the skills, because I do think it's pretty important, so that, you know, if you do have skills that aren't on the GCD, you can make one skill that uses them all at the same time to make button pressing a little bit more efficient. But guys, that's going to be it for me today. I think with this macro guide, I think I pretty much covered most macros that you are going to want to know about in World of Warcraft. Like I said, there will be a link in the description below to my website that has all of these macros listed if you want to be able to just quickly copy and paste them into your game, into your macros thing here on World of Warcraft, and then you can edit the spell names out and put your own stuff in. But guys, thank you so much for stopping by. I do appreciate it. If you liked the video, please smack a like on it. Any questions about macros, feel free to leave them below. And of course, subscribe to keep up to date with all the WoW content I have here on my YouTube channel. So thank you all so much for stopping by. I very much appreciate it. As always, I'm Dots Gaming, and I'll see you all in the next one.